So I'm starting with my clearance lights. They're clean, functional, not broken or missing, amber in color. The next set of lights coming down are my headlights. They're clean, functional, not broken or missing. They're clear in color. Inside of my headlights, I have my turn signals. They're clean, functional, not broken or missing, and they are amber in color. No fog lights, we don't have to worry about that. As I check on the underside of my engine and transmission for any puddles that would indicate any signs of any leaks, there are none. It's a good sign. Walk to the side. So anytime you walk into your side, you do a little scan, and as you can see, there's hoses everywhere. So I start with the hoses, and I say my hoses are secure, they're in good condition, and they're not leaking in any way. Joe also mentioned to knock this out, which I do. On the underside of my engine and my transmission, I'm checking for any signs of leaks. There's no puddles, which is a great sign. There are no leaks. On this is different than our test truck. So let's see what we have here. We have our alternator. Anytime we talk about our components, we want to mention that it's operating properly, not damaged or leaking, mounted securely, and my alternator is belt driven. The belt itself is also mounted securely, and it's not damaged. Think about belts, how they can damage. There's no tears, there's no cracks, and there's no loose fibers. Pulling at the center of my belt, there will be no more than 3/4 of an inch play. So we knock that out. On this side, so then we go to the other side. Same thing. Start scanning from top to bottom as you're approaching it. So automatically, I know I have my hoses and I have my air lines or air hoses. So on my hoses, you know, do the Van and White thing. All my hoses, they're all securely mounted, and they're not damaged, they're not leaking in any way, and they're all in good condition. My coolant reservoir is, and again, operating properly. It's not damaged or leaking, mounted securely, and utilizing the sight glass. My levels are at adequate level above the refill. If I had no sight glass with the engine off and cooled down, I can remove the cap and check the level from above. My dipstick is also, it's mounted securely, it's not damaged or leaking, and pulling the dipstick out, the level is at adequate above the refill mark. So as I continue on, again, we have our air line, so we already know that's going to lead to our air compressor. So we're going to mention that our compressor is operating properly, not damaged or leaking, and is mounted securely, and it is also gear driven. And I'm coming back because my coolant is going to lead to my water pump. So my water pump is operating properly, not damaged or leaking, mounted securely, and it is also gear driven. And as I continue doing my scans, you know, I'm doing my scan sideways, I look at my power steering reservoir, operating properly, not damaged or leaking, mounted securely, utilizing the sight glass. It is at adequate level above the minimum. If I had no sight glass, I would ensure that the engine is off and cooled down, and I can remove the cap to access the dipstick and also be able to verify that it is at adequate level. Now I'm looking at the reservoir that's going to lead to my power steering pump. My power steering pump is operating properly, not damaged or leaking, mounted securely, and it is also gear driven. Now, keeping up with power steering, my power steering box, aka gearbox, is operating properly, not damaged or leaking, mounted securely, with no loose or missing nuts or bolts. Then we have our steering linkage, which consists of our pitman arm, our drag link, and our tie rod. So my components are not bent, they're not cracked, they're not damaged in any way. All bolts, nuts, and cotter keys are present, and there are no worn, loose bushings on them, and sockets. And joints. They're not worn. And if you look at them, I just think about joints, anything that bends on the body. You just look at it, it kind of looks like a skeletal system, so just remember your joints and sockets, just like the shoulder. All right, so moving from that, I'm not gonna jump to my shock absorber. I'm gonna jump to my suspension though and start with my leaf spring hangers. My leaf spring hangers, you got one in the front, you got them in the rear. They're not cracked, broken, or missing. They're mounted securely with no loose or missing nuts or bolts, in good condition. My leaf springs are not cracked, shifted, broken, or missing in any way. And my leaf springs are secured to the axle with U-bolts present. Both U-bolts, they're not cracked, bent, broken, or missing. And all nuts on the bottom of those bolts are also present, again securing it to my axle. My shock absorber is not leaking. It's mounted securely with no loose or missing bushings. Now I'm gonna move inward to my brake chamber, and just think of metal, what metal can do if it's damaged. It's not dented, it's not bent, it's not leaking, it's mounted securely with no loose or missing clamp. Okay, now out of your brake chamber, you got your slack adjuster and push rod. My slack adjuster and push rod is mounted securely with no loose or missing parts. And with the brakes applied, I will not be able to pull more than 1 inch on my slack adjuster. Now, out of the rear side of your brake chamber, you got your brake lines and couplings. They're all secure. They're not leaking or damaged in any way. Now, I'm going to work inward to my brake drum on the inside. My brake drum is, first of all nuts and bolts are present. It's mounted securely, has no holes, no rust, no dents, no damage, in good condition, and is free from any contaminants such as debris, oil, or grease. And my brake linings, where visible, are not worn dangerously thin on that. And also, I'm going to end with there's no puddles from the underside of my engine and transmission, which would indicate any signs of any leaks. So that's in good condition. Then I continue working my way out now to my steer tires, no less than 4/32 of an inch in tread depth. They're worn evenly, and the conditions of my treads, to include my sidewalls, are good. There's no cuts, slices, or bulging. And speaking of my tire, utilizing an air pressure gauge, I remove the cap, and my tire pressure is between 90 and 100 psi. My valve stem and my cap are present. They're not bent, broken, or missing. They're not leaking air. It's in good condition. My rim itself has no repair wells, which would be along the circumference of it to indicate there's no rust trails to indicate any looseness. There's no dents, there's no cracks, there's no holes other than the bolt holes, of course. So it's in good condition. My lug nuts are all present. They're not cracked and distorted, and also my bolt holes are not cracked and distorted. My the lug nuts are tight. They're not loose because there's no shiny treads, and there's also no rust trails. My hub seal is mounted securely and not leaking, and utilizing the sight glass, it is at adequate level. So that's that. My turn marker here is clean, functional, not broken or missing, amber in color. My mirror bracket is not damaged. It's mounted securely with no loose fittings. My door is not damaged, in good condition, and my door properly opens from the outside as well as closes from the outside. My hinges are secure with no damage. My seals are intact, also with no damage. My steps and my catwalk are solid, mounted securely to the frame with no foreign objects or obstructions. I believe that's it for that one. My fuel tank is also mounted securely to the frame. It's not dented or leaking for the fuel tank as well as the fuel lines, and my fuel cap is on tight. So continuing on here, my electric cable and my airlines, they're not pinched, they're not tangled, they're not dragging on any tractor parts. So that's the first thing I say. And then I mentioned the condition. They're also not cut, they're not chafed, they're not spliced. They're not showing any shiny braid through them, so they're in good condition. All my sockets, to include my my pins, are in good condition. They're not damaged in any way. My electric line is seated and latched, both on the side of my tractor and trailer. And my glad hands are also locked into place with all seals intact, with no leaks, in good condition. My drive shaft is not bent or broken or damaged in any way, and my couplings have no obstructions of any foreign objects. And my frame longitude, to include my cross members, have no broken welds, no holes, no rust, and they're in good condition as well. My exhaust on this one is not on the test truck, will be there, but my exhaust is mounted securely. And when we look at the exhaust, there's no signs of any leaks, there's no severe dents, and if there were any signs of any leaks, it would be due to carbon soot or rust. There's none, so there's no leaks on that. That's it for here. And as I continue on my tractor, I'm following it. I'm looking at my splash guard and my mud flap mounted securely with no damage. And then I'm also going to be looking at my tires. My tires, my drive tires are no less than 2/32 of an inch in tread depth. The treads are worn evenly on the duals, and the condition of my treads, to include my sidewalls, are good. There's no bulging, there's no cuts or splices. And utilizing a tire pressure gauge, removing the cap, I would check, and my tire pressure is between 90 to 100 psi. My valve stem and my cap are both present, not damaged, bent, broken, or missing, and not leaking. My rim is also not, has no repair wells, no signs of any rust trails to indicate any looseness in the rim. There's no dents, no cracks or holes, and it's in good condition. My lug nuts are all present, and they're all tight, and they're not cracked or distorted, to include the bolt holes also. They're not cracked and distorted. There's no shiny treads and no rust trails to indicate looseness. The axle seal is also securely mounted, and it's not leaking. If there was a sight glass, I would verify that it would be at adequate level, but there's no sight glass on this one. My bud spacer is centered. It's not damaged through rust, holes, or any other contaminants or foreign objects to block it. My tires are also evenly separated as well. Moving inward here, my airbag suspension is securely mounted with no leaks. And then I'm gonna go through my suspension again. So I have my spring hangers. My spring hangers are mounted securely to the frame with no loose or missing nuts or bolts, no cracks. It's in good condition. And the leaf springs are also not cracked, shifted, or broken, with no loose or missing bushings as well. And they're securely mounted to the axle with U-bolts, both U-bolts in place. The U-bolts are not cracked, broken, or missing, and all nuts are present. And again, it's mounted securely to the axle. My shock is also mounted securely with no loose or missing bushings, and has no signs of any leaks as well. My brake chamber in the front, it's got a brake chamber on this also. Here, not dented, cracked, broken, missing anything. It's not leaking, and all clamps are present and not loose. And then you also have a slack adjuster and push rod that has no loose or missing parts, and with the brakes released, they will pull no more than 1 inch. This following on the tractor, under, and I get my torque arm out the way. My torque arm right here is mounted securely and not damaged. Now, you got your apron, your skid plate on your fifth wheel, the fifth wheel skid plate, and the platform. So things that I say is that my fifth wheel skid plate is properly lubricated, and there's no gap between it itself and the apron. The apron is not bent, cracked, or damaged in any way. My locking jaw is locked around my kingpin, and the kingpin is not bent or broken or damaged in any way. And on the side here, my release arm is in the fully engaged position. There's no locking latch, but if there was, I would ensure that that would be in the locked position as well. The fifth wheel skid plate is securely mounted to the platform with all nuts, bolts, pins, and cotter keys present, and the platform is securely mounted to the tractor with all nuts and bolts present as well. And moving back here, my reflectors clean, functional, not broken or missing, red in color. My brake lights on my tractor, clean, functional, not broken or missing, red in color. Reverse light, clean, functional, not broken or missing, clear in color. No obstructions on my license plate, securely mounted. And also my license plate light is clean, functional, not broken or missing, clear in color. As I'm stepping out, I'm gonna walk back up to my header board. My header board has no bulges, no cracks. It's in good condition, and it's strong enough to secure my cargo. My marker light is clean, functional, not broken or missing, and it is amber in color. My DOT tape is clean, present, and visible straight down the side of my trailer. My frame, the longitude to include the cross members, are not have no broken welds, no holes, no rust, and they're in good condition. So are my deck boards, and it's strong enough to secure my cargo as well. Going on to my landing gear. My landing gear is in the full upright position. My crank arm is locked, and my support frame has no loose or missing parts. or no damage, also to include my landing pads, and it's strong enough also to secure the weight of my cargo. As I continue down, my ratchets are mounted securely with no damage. My cargo box is mounted securely in the locked position, no damage. My side marker and turn signal are clean, functional, not broken or missing, amber in color. And again, as I continue walking down, I'm listening for any signs of leaking through the airlines. I hear none. My airlines are no more than 15 inches off the ground. They're not cut, shaped, they're not spliced, and they're in good condition. And then I can start on my tandem tires. The release arm on my tandem tires is in fully engaged in locked position. My tandem tires are no less than 2/32 of an inch worn, in tread depth. Both sets are worn evenly. The condition to the treads to include the sidewalls have no cuts, splices, or bulging. And utilizing a tire pressure gauge through the valve stem, removing the cap, the pressure is between 90 to 100 psi. The valve stems, as well as the caps, are present. They're not bent, broken, damaged, or missing. There's no air leaks. And also, all my lug nuts are present. They're not cracked or distorted, nor are my bolt holes cracked or distorted as well. The lug nuts are on tight. There's no signs of any looseness, such as shiny treads or rust trails. And the hub seals are also mounted securely with no signs of leaking. And utilizing the sight glass, I can verify that the levels are adequate. The torsion arms on here, you have one back here, and you have one in the front. They're mounted securely with no damage. I have heavy duty leaf springs as well in the rear here on my tandems. They're not broken, cracked, shifted, or missing, with no loose or missing bushings. My spring hangers are mounted securely to the the trailer frame. They're not having any loose or missing nuts or bolts. And also my U-bolts are all present. They're not cracked, broken, or missing, with all nuts present, and they are mounted securely to the axle. Coming out of there, I have my butt spacers in between my tandem tires. There's no severe rust, there's no holes, there's no damage. They're both evenly centered. There's no foreign objects or debris in between. Again, they're centered, as well as the tires are evenly separated, and they're in good condition as well. My ABS light is clean, functional, not broken or missing, amber in color. My marker light is clean, functional, not broken or missing, and red in color. My mud flap is mounted securely with no damage. On the rear of my trailer, I have my brake lights, my turn signals, and my marker lights. They're clean, functional, not broken or missing. They're red in color. My license plate is mounted securely with no obstructions. My license plate light is clean, functional, not broken or missing, clear in color. My ICC bar is free from any damage and mounted securely, as well as all my DOT tape on the rear of my trailer are present